How big was the Tower of Babel? How was that even possible in ancient times? What happened to it that we don't find any archaeology that it ever existed? Well, we just had to show you this. We had a viewer who watched our Answers in Jubilees, where Jubilees documents the massive size of the Tower of Babel that really changes everything in our thinking of what this represents. They did not wish to be identified, but we thank them for sharing this and allowing us to share with everyone. All right, awesome. And a great job they did. Jubilees does so with measurements, and we'll go through that. That's not in Genesis, but the claim that they could have reached heaven and that it really towered into the sky, and what appears an admission from Yahuwah that they could have made it there is still confirmation. I know that there's this thinking out there that it was actually a portal, not a tower. Well, the Bible says it's a tower. The word tower is not portal. We covered that in the video we'll point you to. As with most things, most scholars don't actually believe the Bible. And they treat accounts like this like fairy tales, like fiction. But this is no such. This image they created from Jubilees chapter 10, that's what we had covered, gives you an idea of the scale of the Tower of Babel compared to some of the tallest buildings and large structures today. Wow. Which, by the way, is far more sound, engineering-wise, than scoffers have attempted, as they never bother to actually research how large the foundation was. Duh. How can you say you can't make it when you don't know? When they don't know the materials that were used. See, these are details that are in Jubilees that are not in Genesis, because Jubilees is the detail, is the history book, is the record of division, of territories. It is amazing the kind of detail that we find there. If you're not familiar with the book, go read our testing in the first part of the book that we publish, the Book of Jubilees, the Torah calendar. You can find it at bookofjubilees.org. It's free in ebook. You can get it in print if you wish, color maps. How could they build structures, though? And this is a question out there. A lot, this goes viral. How did they build such structures with large, ancient stone cut many times in just one piece that is as much as 25, 50, and even 100 tons in weight? What? That's a single stone cut as one piece? Yeah. And in some cases, transported these great distances somehow. Now, there are those out there that try to mingle in and out and say, well, this particular structure is, pieced together. So what? There are definitely, just look at Stonehenge. Well, there you go. Who moved those stones? Who piled them that way? That's the question. And it actually has a very coherent answer we're going to deal with. And how did they get it that far? Wow. It is things like that which have brought, shows like Ancient Aliens, which was really a whole cult paradigm, really, of speculation. Basically, they think there's a gray area. Well, because Jubilees is missing, and they go to the Bible and they don't find anything on this. But see, Jubilees used to be in the Bible, and it does have a lot on this. And they insert then grays, literally, in the gray area. Aliens. Not with Jubilees, they can't. See, it dispels all of that. Dispels a lot of what had become nonsensical theories, especially about creation and the flood. And again, look, we have friends that hold some of those theories, but the origin is really Judaism, Kabbalah, really, the occult. And when that becomes the source, ultimately, we got to test those things, and we do here. Indeed, this is beyond what man can even do today, but we'll discuss how at the end of this brief video. Here we go. Get ready as we resolve the doctrines of men yet again. First, we have not just this one, but many surviving architectural feats from the ancients that defy everything we know about man's capabilities back then. It just doesn't make sense. It's got to be aliens, right? This is where strange theories come into play because, well, they don't know that the Bible has actually answered this, even as early as 4000 BC in some cases. But let's take the Great Pyramid of Giza, built, by the way, after the flood. Yes, when you correct the dates, as we do, watch Who Changed Genesis, and you will find the so-called Jewish calendar, year, whatever it is, 5,700, blah, 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 blah. It's off by at least 700 years and more, really. The more ancient basically of pyramids are built on a foundation of stone that was quarried very far away and carried there. But how? How did they do this back then? They didn't have cranes. They didn't have modern equipment. How did they do it? The fact that they asked these kinds of questions without actually doing any research to get an answer, that's really where the problem lies. And then coming up with all these strange theories because they didn't bother to research. Well, what is that? Nonsense, that's what it is. This is the same with the Sphinx and other statues. Many of these are actually fashioned from one solid piece of large stone from what we can find. How did they do this? Wow. Even obelisks in Egypt appear to be cut from one piece right out of the quarries. Can you imagine transporting this then from that quarry to miles away, kilometers away? That'd be rather difficult. Who could lift that? Well, not mankind. But there is an answer that is coherent. See, they did. That's fact. There's no arguing with that because that material doesn't exist where the obelisk was placed. So someone moved it. How did they do it? In fact, many pointed this out. This is an unfinished obelisk right there, still in the quarry, cut out already, but for whatever reason, it was never lifted and it was never placed anywhere. This archaeology demonstrates that they really literally cut these principally as one humongous stone right out of the quarries. But how did they get to where they were supposed to be? It is incredible. Could it be the aliens? Well, if you watch Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, they will tell you so. This is because they are occultists. They really have a cult following even. They're not scientists, not really. They're just peddling a whole bunch of strange, nonsensical occult doctrine that's actually ancient. It comes from a long time ago. It's nothing new. It's just Satanism is what it is. And just because something seems mysterious, right? I mean, they never prove it. They just kind of speculate, and they deal in this whole, well, there's no answer to this, therefore it must be the aliens. That's always what they fill the blank, there with, which is, I mean, that's not scientific thinking. It's not logic. It's a fascinating show to watch. There's no doubt about that. But the reality is there are no aliens. See, the Bible would mention such if there was such. There are no aliens. There is no human life or similar on any planet, anywhere in the universe. Period. The end. It doesn't exist. The whole concept of universe is made up fiction. And they never prove anything in this regard. And then they take it, this much further. If there were truly aliens from other planets, we would already know it, and we would know it for certain, and it would be so certain no government could cover it up. And I know, people will say, oh, I saw something in the sky. I've seen stuff in the sky. I agree with that. But an unidentified flying object does not equal aliens, right? That's still not logic. It just means there's some kind of identified craft out there. Now, the other thing it doesn't say is whether that craft has the ability to go into space and, hyper speed and all of these kinds of things that they just make up. They just add to it. It's Pharisee embellishment. The whole genre of what they call science goes all the way back to the occult. This is from Babylon. This is from ancient Egypt. That's where this really comes from. As we cover in our Tower of Babel video, science even affirms these specs possible. Scientifically, yes, they could absolutely build a tower as tall as Jubilees says, and that's not even based on the kind of foundation that they built, which is just astronomical and, again, so underrated in scholarship. They have no clue what the Tower of Babel really was. It was so huge. Those saying it was not possible, well, they just don't know that this tower was 3.4 miles or 5.4 kilometers long in base. Wow. That's just unthinkable. Think about that. We don't build buildings like that today. There's a reason that we don't. Yahuwah struck this down. They learned from that, and they didn't build anything this large after that. See, that's just common sense. Sorry, I don't mean to apply that too often. I know I'm not allowed to, is the way that works, right? No, sorry, we're going to do that here. And it's 1.5 miles or 2.34 kilometers wide. Wow! Can you imagine how intensely large this was? It changes everything because here we have an adequate base. Structure-wise, for an architect or an engineer to actually run the math and do the numbers and find out, oh, actually, that is possible. Now, the question is how. And, how did they move those big blocks, right? Because it would require that. But we already know that they did in other ancient structures. So it's no surprise. Even some during that time, very close to the time of Babel. So this allowed it to soar to 1.55 miles or 2.5 kilometers tall into the sky. Wow. Now, I know we don't have any structures that large today. Let's be clear. If you were to build a structure this big, it's going to get the attention of Yahuwah. And it would be absolutely 100% because the world is marching toward the bowing to the beast, really. It would be for him. It would be, to storm heaven, just like they did at Babel, which he would never allow. Understand that. He's a righteous Elohim. So they know better than to even try it. So that's why, number one, why they don't do it. Number two, there's a huge mechanism missing today that was not in ancient times. It's something very forgotten. We're going to deal with it. Science based on these construction materials, as we cover, proves it could have gone to at least 2 miles high, just based on a modern thinking without even understanding the sheer size of this foundation. I know. Some are then seeking archaeology. Oh, you got all that block, you got all those rocks, you got all that material. There must be archaeology. That is called stupid, right? It was utterly destroyed. They don't believe it ever existed because, well, they don't believe anything. And so they create false narratives and they say, well, if I can't find this, I can't believe it. But what you're asking for is never going to be found according to the narrative. Jubilees and really Genesis say the same. The entire tower was thrown down upon the earth. Got that? All of it. The notion that the creator Elohim would do so haphazardly or just do half of the job, are you kidding? Oops, I missed one stone. Yeah, that's rather illiterate, really. And so to look for the stone that he missed when he doesn't miss, well, that's just nonsense. So let's not pretend they are actually doing anything but scoffing in ignorance. Yes, when scaled against modern construction, this actually appears attainable. However, there's one huge thing, literally, those scoffers are forgetting: the giants. How do you lift those stones? The giants. Who do you think built the ancient pyramids? Not humans. It wasn't Israelites. That's illiterate because there's no history that Israelites built pyramids. They built other structures. Yes, there were slaves during that time. There's no evidence that there were slaves back in the days that the Great Pyramids were built. But there were giants. And they didn't have to be enslaved, right? Because, especially Freemasonry, is all about building, mega structures. And, that's what it's about. That's part of their religion in that case. Look at how Freemasonry looks at Hiram, right? King of Tyre. Hiram Abiff, they called him. The builder or foreman, whatever you want to call him, of the temple project in Jerusalem. And man, they worship him like he's a god because they love that he built this incredible structure. Well, see, that's what we're dealing with here. Why are even the pyramids so much smaller, though, than this tower? I mean, look at the size. It's wow. I mean, look at it compared to the tallest buildings on earth today. There's no doubt that's the case. Yes, this is a claim that is massively over and above what anyone thought of before they read Jubilees. No doubt, us too. However, the tower failed. They knew it failed, and they knew it would bring a response from Yahuwah, right? The giants even knew this. Come on. He responded to them with the flood, then with Babel. He'll do it again in Sodom and the cities on the plain, which we also cover in 2 videos explaining that whole thing. And yes, Nephilim are involved, or at least the hope to bring the return of the Nephilim. It's not a story of homosexuality, though that is a trait of some that lived in Sodom. That's not what this is about. I mean, you sleep with a fallen angel, you get a titan, you get a large Nephilim. That's what they wanted. Now, and it wasn't about man on man or woman on woman. No. So yes, we can locate these cities as well, and we do in those videos. Watch those. Or could it be the aliens? Well, no, there are no aliens. Now, our viewer also rendered this, because this is an option, as a pyramid shape, thinking that could be the actual design, and certainly possible, no doubt. Either way, it would have to have some sort of way to get up to the top, right? But there you go. And you wonder, well, how can human beings go that high into the sky? People say that all the time. Of course, what they had built thus far is actually a very tall mountain, but nevertheless, we actually can still breathe at that altitude. So that's not really a factor. However, giants, even more so. And they were able to build this, and this is largely their construction, not human beings, though it was a project of all of them together, of course. The whole world was together at that time. Ancient structures in Mesopotamia, though, tend to follow this kind of design of the ziggurat, though either works again either way. It doesn't really matter which design was used. I mean, if you think about it, what if all of the pyramids that you find are actually reconstructions of pre-flood structures, number one, and number two, really of the Tower of Babel, but on a smaller scale? Very well could be. Definitely an occult Freemasonic thinking, no doubt. How did they do it, though? I mean, without the equipment. For instance, this is the famous Stonehenge we mentioned in the beginning. These stones, one piece each, are about 30 tons each. Wow. They estimate these were brought in from over 20 miles away. Well, how did they carry them that far? Even if it was only 1 mile away, for that matter, if it was 100 yards away, how did they cut them? And, we see all over the earth these kinds of structures. I mean, just to name a few, you have the tumulus of Bourgogne in France. I probably didn't say that right, but oh well. And someone lifted, or something, a 90-ton capstone to place on the top. Oh, wow. Göbekli Tepe has 60-ton blocks, and a lot of them. How? And, we could go on and on and on. I mean, the History Channel does, and many have, and they'll create this gray area, and then they'll insert the grays there. Every time they conclude, or could it be the aliens? Well, they are occult Luciferian worshippers, really, and they never prove anything. It's a New Age mentality. Speculation is vast on that show, Ancient Aliens, and the whole paradigm is nothing but pure speculation. And again, trying to fill in blanks that it's trying to claim are gray areas because, of course, the church generally has censored part of the Bible, especially the book of Jubilees and First Enoch, etc. If you don't know that, read the book. We test it. We prove it. It is Torah, indeed. No, Genesis 6, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. And then you read Numbers 13:33, and it connects the very same term, which is only used 3 times in Scriptures, Nephilim, 3 times, Genesis 6:4, and then again in Numbers twice. That's it. And connects it that those giants are, in fact, the bloodline giants, the lineage who crossed the flood. Now, watch our Tower of Babel video, our awesome segment, Who Were the Nephilim? And to address what I just said, because I ain't just making a claim, we prove it. How did the giants survive the flood? Parts 1 and 2. We really assess that very well. And oops, did Ron Wyatt find the Nephilim Ark? Oops. Yeah, that's a good one. Check it out. You will find the ancient texts of the Bible paradigm have always explained this, and this is why you see, even in occult religions like Greek mythology, the Titans or mega giants. Yeah, they could lift 100 tons, no problem, right? With one hand, probably. Again, it would depend, but, even after the flood, though, the giants got smaller over time, but were still massive in size compared to humans with immeasurable strength, and that's the key. Many of them were triple the width. See, that they were wide and they were powerfully strong. But yeah, they got smaller in time, and basically giants were male. That's what the accounts pretty much show. Likely because they're fallen angel DNA, because they're half angel, half human women. As from Cain, by the way, his daughters. As angels take male form, never female, when in human form. There's no scripture that ever says that. I know, maybe the Catholic Church is obsessed with female angels. Nonsense. There's this image, especially Valentine's Day, of a child that's a cherub angel. Are you kidding? You do not want to meet a cherub angel. They are one of the most terrible, dreadful angels you could ever meet. Massive in size, and you would be intimidated. They had to mate with human women, though, and each generation got smaller and smaller until today they are basically human, even in DNA, and have our size. There are those bloodlines that have tried to remain as pure as they can, but even then they still have the problem of procreating That was always the Nephilim problem. So you wonder, well, if some of the giants survived the flood, then Yahuwah didn't finish the job. Well, yeah, he did. They're gone. There are no giants today. And even the purest of Nephilim bloodlines, which, by the way, a lot of it is royalty in Europe. They make the claim themselves, like the Merovingian bloodline. Actually, Clovis Merovingian actually claimed to descend from Poseidon. Now, he could have been a liar. Hey, that's his problem, not ours, but it's his claim. Poseidon is a fallen angel, is a watcher. So he's saying that he came from a Nephilim. In China, you have the very first emperor, and from then on, you have claim after claim of descending from dragons. Dragons were Nephilim, hybrids, etc. Hello. They're making their own claims. The Tower of Babel, and then, by the way, the Chinese people are not Nephilim. Got that? But there are choice rulers, and there's a bloodline, an elite bloodline, that it has claimed to be. You see this, divine right to rule amongst many cultures around the world. That is a Nephilim ideology. It's ridiculous. No bloodline gives you a right to rule others. In fact, mankind's not supposed to be ruled by other men. The original system in the Bible is really to have a prophet at the top. Why? Because the prophet hears directly from Yahuwah, because Yahuwah is in charge. And that's what it's all about. And that's his system. And when even Israel demanded, we want a king, and, what do they say? We want what the world has. We want to be ruled by men like the Nephilim. That's basically what they were saying, and that's what they got. In 2 generations, they were slaves, basically. And we are today, and taxes, things like that, that's slavery. Especially when you're paying more than 50% of your income in taxes when you add it all up. And if you live in the U.S. And you're an average, the elites don't, but you're an average citizen, then yeah, you are probably paying that much. If you add up all the taxes, sales tax, tax at the pump, tax on your cell phone bill, all the different ones. The Tower of Babel was far larger than suspected and even sound, according to really engineers who actually know the size. We covered that, an actual reference in our video on the Tower of Babel. It was built with the assistance of giants and no cranes, no modern equipment, and no aliens required. That makes sense. Frankly, nothing else does. Always remember, prove all things for yourself. Yah bless to everyone. About 382 AD, in the days of Jerome, known for the Latin Vulgate, a new term began to circulate in Bible scholarship, according to R.H. Charles. Certain texts of historical value, and even canon, were now labeled as something other than inspired scripture. The very concept is a clear redefining of books already in existence, and in most cases, text recorded as inspired scripture and Bible canon now somehow in question by those without any such authority. This paradigm remains today even further rooted, as if it ever represented the historical approach to these Old Testament texts, as some vet as truth. How do these texts stand up to the Torah test? The answer on many of these books will likely shock especially scholars who have never actually conducted such research, which becomes evident. It's not in their paradigm. This canon was already chosen before there were Pharisees in Jerusalem and before there was ever a Catholic Church. Those factions do not get to legitimately form councils to vote on that which was already settled fact long before, even in archaeology. You are entering a zone for truth with our new Apocrypha Test series. Follow along, and together we will dispel the myths of modern scholarship. And man, are they profoundly lacking in intellect on this topic, you will see. Not anymore. Download your copies of Volume 1 and Volume 2 of our comprehensive Apocrypha research, free in ebook today, or get your copies at apocryphatest.com. All links are there. We now begin.